VikesNow, I am Dustin Baker. We are on the May 22nd edition. June 13th marks the start of mandatory minicamp, so that's not far away. And then actually today and tomorrow, there are Vikings practices at Egan that we'll either talk about on this show or will be written about on VikingsTerritory.com, the website for which I write. But I want to do today is 5 reasons to get pumped about this 2023 team. We have pretty much a full off season now in the rear view. There might be some more free agents that join in the summer. But reasons to be optimistic because, a lot of Vegas odds makers are saying 8.5 wins, second place in NFC North, if that, to the Detroit Lions. So I want to go over 5 items that should give you some enthusiasm about the 2023 team. And hopefully you're impressed. Rank them in order. So when we get to number 1, that is the thing to be most excited about. Number 5 on my list of 5 reasons to get pumped about these 2023 Vikings is a full year of TJ Hockenson. He arrived last year on November 1st at the trade deadline for basically pick swaps with the Lions. And then in 10 games, he notched 60 receptions, which if you translate that to a full 17-game sample size, assuming he doesn't get nicked by injury, is 102 catches. Now, for his sake and for the Vikings' sake, you'll hope that his yards per reception goes up a little bit. It was kind of teensy because he was the security blanket in the middle of the field for Kirk Cousins, so you'll hope for that, but you'll also get a full plate of TJ Hockenson. He'll have a full summer under his belt with the Vikings instead of just being thrust into action. And you might recall me saying, and I think you felt it in your bones during the 2022 season, we often thought, what did we do before Hockenson? This guy was so instrumental at certain spots. It's how did this thing tick without him? Almost a season-saving trade on offense from Kwesi Adofo-Mensah. Now gets a full year audition with the Vikings, and by the time that rolls around, he'll probably be even more handsomely compensated with a long-term extension. But ordinarily, for the past 4 years on podcasts like these, we talk about an Irv Smith breakout year. And I'm sure on Bengals podcasts, bless their heart, they're doing the same thing. And we don't have to do that anymore because we have the finest TJ Hockenson to serve as the TE1. And then if he does, twist his ankle or something, the team also has Josh Oliver at TE2, who was onboarded in March, who's a run-blocking tight end, but can also catch the ball in a pinch. So I think number 5 on this list is a full year of Hockenson, so you can fully unlock what he can bring to this offense, and he will have had a mini camp, a training camp, and a little bit of a preseason to get even more acclimated than before. Number 4 is back against the wall Kirk. What does that mean? Well, for the first time in Vikings football, 5 years, Cousins is not committed to the Vikings beyond one more season, and that's an oddity. Usually the general manager, whether it's Rick Spielman or Kwesi Adofo-Mensah, they add an extra year onto the deal so that Cousins isn't just on the final year of his contract. Well, that's not the case this year, unless something happens between now and pretty much next February. Cousins has not been extended. We think it's strategic because they want to have their options open when free agency rolls around in the draft next year. But this is the first time that since his time in Washington when he was franchise tagged back-to-back, that Cousins is in a contract year. He's playing for his next job and his next contract. I'm here to tell you that if he does hit free agency, he's probably going to play for the San Francisco 49ers. Kyle Shanahan is enamored with Kirk. But what does back against the wall Kirk produce? Usually when it's, he does have security, an extra year onto his deal. He throws 30 touchdowns and 4,000 yards. We'll get to see if it's a different animal with Cousins who is playing for his job. That could mean the same thing, and we'll take it. 30 touchdowns, 10 picks, blah, blah, blah. Or it could be supersized Kirk, which is about 38 touchdowns and maybe 9 picks and 4,600 yards. Other thing to remember about Cousins this year is for the first time since the beginning of his Washington starting days, he'll have play calling continuity. Usually Cousins is a offensive coordinator whisperer. He gets guys promoted. They take jobs elsewhere because somebody was able to extract that type of performance from Kirk. And we've seen it time and time again, whether in Washington or Clint Kubiak or Stefanski with the Vikings. But we have back against the wall Kirk in a contract year with continuity on the offensive line and the play caller in Kevin O'Connell. So that should spell a little bit more extra juice than what Cousins usually brings to the table. That's number 4. Number 3 is balanced play calling. You'll have offensive line continuity. You'll have the same play caller, of course, in Kevin O'Connell. That's why they hired an offense first head coach back in February of 2022. But here's a dirty little secret that has been reported on this show a few times. The Vikings ran the football the 3rd least in the NFL last year per play calling percentage. It is no surprise in retrospect that the former quarterback wanted to throw the football a lot, and that's exactly what the Vikings did, to the tune of 3rd most in the league. Well, that's great, and I know you love to see it, and it's like the Maddenization of football, or throw. Why are we running this thing? But here's why you need to run the football. It's because time of possession matters. For about 3 straight years, the Vikings have had problems with time of possession, and that means the defense gets on the field longer. And the last 3 iterations of the Vikings defense aren't very good. Now, that might be because they're tired because of this damn time of possession thing, or it could just mean that they're not good, and then the time of possession insult is even more deadly to an already bad defense. But through the acquisition of Josh Oliver, who I mentioned as TJ Hawkinson's backup, re-upping with CJ Ham, and now having about 5 running backs, including Dalvin Cook, I'm here to tell you that the Vikings are going to run the ball a lot more in 2023. That doesn't mean that they're going to run it on 3rd and 13 or whatever it is that the big devil is, but they're going to run the ball more. Somebody in Egan, probably Kwesi, probably Kevin O'Connell, said, it's great that we want to throw the football, but we gotta run the thing too to keep folks honest, to churn out that time of possession and win ball games by running the football. The Vikings did an average job running the football. A lot of it was boosted by Dalvin Cook's home run touchdowns. He had 3 or 4 touchdowns over 50 yards last year, a saving grace to his season. But you should fully expect the Vikings to run the football more, and the perk of that is balance play calling on offense. Number 2, probably the most fun one on here, is the Jefferson Addison billboardization of the Minnesota Vikings. You know firsthand that the Vikings throughout history do one thing really well, almost without fault, outside of Laquan Treadwell, and that is draft wide receivers. Randy Moss, Percy Harvin, Justin Jefferson, they can all tell you all about it. And that's exactly what the Vikings did on April 27th when they probably should have drafted a defensive player to improve the league's second to worst defense per yards allowed. Was draft Deontay Banks or Joey Porter, but nope. They went with Addison, and now you'll have Jefferson and Addison being the guys on the billboard probably for the next 5 years. And that should be ultra exciting because this is what we know and breathe, is Vikings football through the lens of wide receivers, typically Hall of Fame ones with Chris Carter and Randy Moss. Now, if Addison's any good, that can be replicated at least to a degree. So it should bring in a new era of fans too, the youngsters, the boys and girls that are about 6, 7, 8 years old. They're going to know Vikings football through its wide receivers. So the billboardization of the Vikings, it's already Jefferson's franchise, but now it can be almost a 1A or a Batman and Robin with Jefferson and Addison. And the number 1, this one's by default, and I've hinted at it several times, is Brian Flores. That is the number 1 reason to be exciting about Vikings football because he has to be good. The Vikings are asking him to do more with less. They subtracted Eric Kendricks, Dalvin Tomlinson, Patrick Peterson, Duke Shelley, am I forgetting one other one, on defense, and they're saying we're fine with that. We like our draft class from last year. We're getting younger, and we just need to find a better defensive coordinator than Ed Donatel to make this thing right. Now, the good news for Flores is the offense looks so steady that he probably only needs to nudge it up to about middle of the league to be good, and then the rest of the team can tick and hopefully win the NFC North. So to recap, it's a full year of TJ Hockenson, number 5. Number 4, you get a contract year back against the wall, Kirk. Number 3 is balanced play calling. The Vikings are going to run the ball a little bit more. Number 2 is Justin Jefferson and Jordan Addison are now the faces of the franchise. I guess Addison probably needs to prove that he's any good first, but at least the potential is there. And the number 1 is Brian Flores, the hire at defensive coordinator. The Vikings are banking everything on him being good at his job because otherwise they would have made more defensive moves. All right, we'll be back tomorrow talking to Brett from Vikings Central. That's all we got for today. Skol, baby.